have been myths and legends about the Sasquatch for many, many years. There's so much mystery that surrounds this being. And today we welcome Mike Bodewitz, a Sasquatch contactee and channeler, who is going to share information about Sasquatch, his contact experiences, and how you can make contact with Sasquatch too. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Starseed Chats. Tonight, I have something a little bit different for us to talk about, inspired by my recent trip. Yeah. Tonight, we're talking about Sasquatch.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I have my good friend Mike here with me. I met him through TikTok a while back. So before I was on YouTube, I started off on TikTok, and we met through I was sharing a lot of my UFO footage, and I was doing live CE5s each week on there for a little bit, where I'd stream the night sky with the night vision camera, and that's how we connected. And he's super knowledgeable. He's super intuitive also. So it was really cool meeting him in kind of like the beginning of my journey, and we like kind of bounced things off of each other. And he introduced me to so he's had UFO experiences, and he knows about the whole starseed thing, but he's the one who introduced me to Sasquatch. And even for me, with how fringe I am, I was like, really, Sasquatch is real? And oh boy, is Sasquatch real? And I've had some very exciting experiences with Sasquatch since meeting Mike. And this is also inspired just a little bit of back information. So last week I went to Arkansas, and I met a whole family of Sasquatch. And so now I'm just super excited to talk about Sasquatch tonight. So Mike, thank you so much for coming, and welcome on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to talk to you again after a little bit of time passing. We both doing our own thing. And you remember what I told you a while back, how we are connected in the fact that you're a messenger for the star people, and you're bringing that cosmic energy down to humanity. I, on the other hand, am bringing earth energy, a grounding, and once we're connecting it, it's creating basically a ley line from the cosmos to earth. And when you and I talk, I feel that connection of Gaia and grounding and the cosmos coming together and connecting, and it's very powerful.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, we need some of that grounding energy too. One of my good friends, she's all about the earth. She's always looking down at the ground. She gardens, and she's really close with like the fairies and the elementals. And she's like, Lily, your head's always in the clouds. You're always looking up. She's like, but whenever you balance the two, that's when real magic happens. So I love to hear that. Yeah, and you're even writing and what I wanted to talk about today was a little bit of like your background with Sasquatch, some of your Sasquatch experiences, educate. I did a Sasquatch activation. I've had experiences with them, but you're actually like a channel for them. You share beautiful messages on your Facebook and Instagram, and you've had a lot of just beautiful experiences. So I wanted to get into that. You're also an Arcturian, so I wanted to mention those experiences. But yeah, so right now you're working on a book about Sasquatch. You've been channeling the messages. Can you kind of just share like how you got started with this whole thing?
Oh, so it's a long story. We could do a whole show about that. But so to start from the beginning, it all started, and I did not remember this. This memory did not surface until probably 4 years ago. But my first experience with the Sasquatch was when I was 7 years old. And we had just moved up to the hills of Oregon from Arizona. And I was about 7 years old. And I remember being inside, And, you know, my dad and, you know, my family were around somewhere. Um, I don't exactly remember what was going on in the house, but what I do remember is I had this draw, this call, this feeling that I needed to go outside. And mind you, we lived in the country. I mean, we're hillbillies up there. We had goats. We're in a forested area. It's out in the middle of nowhere, basically. And so I had this call to go outside. My 7-year-old self was drawn to go outside for some reason. And like a magnet, I just started going. And I walked out the front door, walked onto the porch, and I went over to the fence. And there's a fence that separates our property from the neighbor's property. And it's really just very really brushy. There's lots of trees. It's really dense over there. So I had this draw to walk over to this spot over by the fence and stand there. It was almost like I was being guided. It was like a magnet or something. Something was drawing me over there. And I walked over there and I stood and I waited for something. And I was on autopilot. I went over there and I stood and waited. And not long after I was standing there, I heard something coming through the brush. I heard something big starting to move through the brush. And not too long after that, all of a sudden, the brush had parted and the giant black Sasquatch appears out of the bush and is standing there. And he's fully physical, black. He's 9 feet tall. He just walks out of the bush and just stands there and just shows his complete self to me. And I'm standing, my 7-year-old self is standing there looking at this Sasquatch, 9 foot tall Sasquatch. And it just came out of the bush and just stood there and was looking at me. And you would think that I would freak out and I would just scream and run away. But that wasn't the case. There was this calm feeling, I wasn't scared at all. There was this calm feeling when I saw him. And it was a feeling. So several things happened when he came out and looked at me. It seemed like time had stopped. It seemed, you get in that moment where all of a sudden it's an intense moment and all of a sudden time just stops, right? And I think literally time did stop. And I'm standing there looking at this amazing black Sasquatch, not even knowing what it is. It's just a giant, hairy something standing there looking at me. And I'm not scared at all. I actually am very calm. And I get this feeling like he's family. He's like, I have this warm family feeling like I've known him and I know him. And I'm glad to see him, and I'm not scared at all. And we just looking in each other's eyes. He's got big black eyes. You can't even see the pupils. They're just straight dark eyes. And we just look at each other for a moment. And I can't tell you how long this happened because it felt like time had stopped. And he gives me this little grin. He just gives me like this little cockeyed grin and then literally just turns around and walks back into the bush, moves the bush away, walks back in and just disappears into the brush.
Oh, that's beautiful. So there's a few things to, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Was there, I was going to say
there's got me.
There's a few things that pop out very similar to like with UFO experiences, suddenly feeling a call to go outside, like they're like intuitively guiding you out there. I hear that all the time, and that's what happened with me all the time. And then the feeling of family, that's just so amazing, so beautiful. Whenever I connected with the Sasquatch in Arkansas, the message was like, this is what it's supposed to be like. We are family. We are supposed to, you know, be among each other. But so then for you think that you've had other lifetimes as a Sasquatch being.
I have recalled 2 different lifetimes as a Sasquatch through meditation. And one of them was the lifetime before this one,
Wow.
where I was an elder. And I was a Sasquatch elder, and I lived in the Great Mountains of Canada. And I remember sitting on the hillside and wondering why humanity and Sasquatch had to be separate. And I remember talking to the council, because the Sasquatch have a high council. And I remember talking to the council members, wondering and asking them, why do we have to, you know, remain elusive? Why do we have to, you know, stay away from the humans? And they told us because their consciousness is not at the point right now where we can interact with them, where we can trust that they're not going to have an aggressive reaction to us. And we are waiting for their consciousness to rise to a certain level. And we're talking about the collective consciousness of humanity here, not just individuals. We're talking about a whole human race. They are waiting for humanity's collective consciousness to rise to a certain level where we of fear, hatred, violence, separatism, and become more friendly. And I remember asking the council, why can't we just, you know, go say hi to them? Why can't we connect with them and try to, you know, do what we can to help them along? And there's specific rules, galactic rules, where we can't do that. And I was so discouraged as an elder and a Sasquatch elder, because I just had this drive to want to know more about humanity and humans. And I saw them as, you know, our brothers and sisters, our little brothers and sisters. And I just had this overwhelming sorrow in me that we had to stay away, and we had to, you know, keep separate from them, you know. And it bothered me so much that I decided, and I had a great idea. I decided that if I could not go to humanity as a Sasquatch, that I would voluntarily end my incarnation as a Sasquatch and reincarnate as a human in order to go amongst them and help them connect with the Sasquatch. And I did this knowingly, and I did this voluntarily. I voluntarily left my incarnation as a Sasquatch elder, regrouped, and reincarnated as Mike Bodewitz to be the bridge between humanity and Sasquatch. Basically, you know, me being on the inside, having this awareness of who I was as a Sasquatch and having this knowledge, and going on the inside to humanity and gently having that persuasion and that effect on the inside with humanity. And that's what I'm doing. I'm creating a bridge to allow humanity to know the Sasquatch better and to start coming to the Sasquatch and understand them better and start creating that reunification that we need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's incredible. And that just almost got me choked up for a second. I'm wondering if anybody in the audience felt kind of triggered by that, because that's what a lot of us as galactics, we volunteered to come here to do this. So that's just really, really beautiful. And yeah, I feel like not a whole lot of people know that much about Sasquatch. I'm newly introduced to Sasquatch. You mentioned a galactic rules. So where can you tell us about, like, where does the Sasquatch come from, or what's kind of their history that you know of? Do they come from her? do they come? Are they galactic beings?
They originated on a planet called Maldek, and that this planet was in our solar system a long time ago, and that's where they were seeded. That's where they originated from, and that's where they developed their consciousness, their beginning consciousness was on Maldek. And the Sasquatch have given me visions of Maldek, and there's not too many Sasquatch around that have had. There's one High Council member that actually serves on the Galactic Federation and is a Sasquatch representative that's old enough that he actually has experience and did live on Maldek a long time ago. And he gave me the vision of what Maldek looked like. And it was very much like Earth, but everything was enormous. Everything was huge. Like the mountains, 3 times the size of our mountains. The peaks would literally rise up through the clouds into the sky. The clouds were just
Snap, it cut out. Hopefully. 16 minutes. Crud. Come on, please. Please. There we go.
all right. I'm back.
Thank God.
So anyways, I was saying,
Yeah, go ahead.
so Maldek, I had visions of Maldek. It was a beautiful planet, and everything was huge. Like the redwoods were very miniature compared to the trees on Maldek. Everything was ginormous on Maldek. The mountains would shoot through the clouds, and everything was so huge. The animals, they had animals on Maldek that were different than what we have here, and they were enormous. Everything was just so much larger on Maldek, and but it got destroyed, and there was a war. The Sasquatch don't like talking about it too much, especially the elders. It's a very traumatic thing for them. They basically just told me that there was a war and it got destroyed. They didn't really go into the specifics about it, and they didn't really want to focus, their information about that. They don't want to look back on history. They want to look forward into the future, specifically with my purpose and trying to build a bridge to the future for humanity and Sasquatch. So they just kind of were very general with me about the details. But Maldek got destroyed. There was a war between other races, and Saturn, the Maldek, parts of Maldek are around Saturn and are the rings of Saturn right now. So yeah, they came from Maldek, and once Maldek was impending and getting ready to be destroyed, they were transported over and taken from Maldek by the Star People. The Arcturians, many Star People were helping to remove the Sasquatch from Maldek and place them on another planet. Earth was a young planet at the time, and there was a period of time where the Sasquatch weren't put on Earth for a while. It was still developing, and then still developing in its evolutionary process. But the first beings on Earth were the fish people, because most of Earth was water at the time. So the fish people were the first beings to live on Earth. It wasn't after a while until the Sasquatch actually became were placed and seated on Earth to be the caretakers of Earth. But yeah, the Sasquatch have been on Earth for a long time, longer than we can comprehend. Like our history can't even comprehend how long Sasquatch have been on Earth.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really heartwarming to hear that the star people helped transport them. So yeah, whenever you come across like UFO sightings and Sasquatch sightings, a lot of it goes hand in hand together. Um, so I know these beings are like interdimensional, and then you just mentioned that they do have a relationship with the star people. Could you touch more on that, I guess, a little bit? Like their relationship with the star
Yeah.
people, or their also their interdimensionality, because they can phase in and out of this reality. That's why a lot of people, well, like the normies, they're like, well, where's Sasquatch? Like,
Yeah.
there's probably tons
And
to
that's
uncover.
what I'm trying to do. And this is my mission, is to help people that have these Sasquatch experiences to understand that yes, they can be physical like you and I. They have that ability to be flesh and blood, to be physical, but they also have special abilities where they are very psychic, they're very high consciousness, and they can dematerialize. They can walk into other dimensions. They are very amazing beings, and they're on this planet right now walking with us. Um, so, as far as the star people go, the star people created the Sasquatch.
Hmm.
So basically, the Sasquatch see the star people as their elders. They call them star elders because the Sasquatch were created and seeded by the star people. The star people are kind of the parents of us humans and Sasquatch. Humanity and Sasquatch, we're so closely related. Humans and Sasquatch we literally have almost the same DNA. We have, there's only one strand difference, or one facet difference between us and the Sasquatch. We're so much alike. That's why they consider us family. That's why they consider us little brothers and sisters, is because we're so close in our evolutionary process. We're so close in our DNA and our DNA coding. Um, and that's why they care for us so much. There was a point where, when humanity was first seeded on Earth, the Sasquatch were there to take care of us and guide us. They were there to help us, learn how to be human, and we basically were being guided by the Sasquatch on Earth on how to live, and live the simple ways, live with Mother Earth. And we were one at one point. We were connected in family. We would live together with the Sasquatch, and it was a beautiful time. And an event happened where humanity walked away from the Sasquatch. They walked away due to guilt. They felt that Sasquatch was. There was a group of you. Okay, there was two different groups of humans. There was a group of humans in the beginning that stayed with the Sasquatch, were dedicated with the Sasquatch, lived with the Sasquatch, and stayed true with their elder brothers and sisters. There was also a divide where a group of humans in the beginning walked away from the Sasquatch. There was a lower vibrational feeling of guilt. They thought the Sasquatch were better than humanity. They thought the Sasquatch were basically treating them like children, and there was a lot of negative consciousness when certain individuals in this other group did to separate two groups. And in this second group, they walked away from the Sasquatch and the Sasquatch's help, and decided to strike off on their own and create their own path. And when they did, they leaned more technology. They leaned more towards technology because they lost their natural abilities. The Sasquatch were helping us with telepathy, with energy and manifesting energy and using the natural energy of Earth. And they were helping us to use that naturally. And when that other group walked away from Sasquatch, they lost that ability, and they started leaning on more physical abilities and technology. They started, developing ways to 3D take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, and in that they lost their spiritual self as well, because they were more focused on, how can we survive and use technology, and they became more separated from their spiritual self. And that was kind of where the divide happened. And that's kind of where humanity ended up to this point, is there's been many rises and falls of humanity, where they rose to a certain point and then they just fell, and then a new civilization of humanity came back.
Like Atlantis. That's what that was reminding me of. Like with Atlantis, the Atlanteans, they started getting greedy and kind of like infiltrated by this kind of negativity that grew, and they ended up destroying themselves.
Right.
They lost sight of their.
We are the fifth. Right. We are the fifth civilization. Wow. We are the fifth civilization of humans that have been on this planet. There have been 4 great civilizations before us that have risen and fallen. Wow. And humanity has seen really good times. But in those good times, like you said, they lost their spirituality, they lost their connection and got greedy. And for different reasons, they destroyed themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then they had to restart their evolutionary process. The Sasquatch have never wavered. Since they've been seated on Earth, they have stayed true to their soul evolution. They have stayed true to their way, and they have always been here and always been a constant on this planet. Wow. They've always been here to help Gaia. They've always been here to help other beings, and they've always been there for us. And they've watched us rise and fall 5 different times.
Wow.
And I mean, well, not 4 different times. I mean, that this 5th one, we're gonna kind of we're gonna make it. We're heading up, but it was looking pretty dire for a while.
Yeah, definitely. I could see that, because they've shown me visions of, like, the star beings have shown me visions of like flying saucers and dinosaurs. So there's been stuff going on here for a really long time. They've shown me, like, I think multiple floods have happened. They've shown me giants on Earth from a really long time ago. Like, I don't have all the details, but that does ring true, that there's been a lot going on here for a very long time. And probably a lot of beings have gone extinct or just fallen, and had to start over, like you said. I also wanted to ask, so you mentioned the Sasquatch and using energy. So my first experience ever with Sasquatch was shortly after we started chatting. Then I started seeing Sasquatch signs everywhere, and I was like, I think Sasquatch is trying to communicate with me. And you told me that I had a Sasquatch god named Kima. And then shortly after that, one night I was going to sleep, and I was kind of tuning in before bed. Suddenly I see like this big hairy arm that literally jolted me awake. It startled me, and I was like, "What was that?" And then I'm like, "Oh my god, Kima, it's Sasquatch." So I close my eyes again, and then the next time I see him standing, right in front of me. I see his face, his shoulders, his arms, and he has a ball of golden energy. And then he starts sending me like Reiki healing, energy healing, and it was so nice. So nice. So can you tell us a little bit about tell us a little bit about the Sasquatch? So it seems like some of them are healers, or they know how to use energy. What is kind of like the typical Sasquatch?
Oh, the typical Sasquatch. Well, one thing I do have to say is the way their behavior is so much different than we, because we have customs and we have ways we approach people, and we've developed this conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
They are very just kind of upfront, and sometimes they can be very bold with you. And having that big hairy arm come over is so typical of the Sasquatch to kind of shock you and be like, "Whoa, dude!"
Yeah.
They do that. They're very bold in their way that they come to you. And sometimes I get them, their faces right there. I'm like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
or like I'll be meditating and all of a sudden their face will just show up right in my face, and I'm just like, "Whoa!" And it makes me jump. That's how they are. They're very deliberate in everything they do when it comes to making contact with you, or if they don't like you, they'll walk away. I'm done. Or if they want to let you know that they're going to be very deliberate in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So their behavior is very different than humans. We have customs and we have rules for interacting with each other. They don't follow human rules, and they kind of do things that kind of may startle you, and if you just have to let them know. They don't know this stuff. Once you let them know, hey, that kind of scared me, don't do that again, or don't put your face right next to my face, or you just got to talk to them and tell them what startles you and what you don't like. They're happy to respect that. But your typical Sasquatch, each Sasquatch is an individual. Each Sasquatch has a personality. It's just like you and I. They're individual people, but they do have the ability to tap into the collective mind. It's not really a hive mind, but they have the ability to tap into the collective consciousness of the Sasquatch. They can pull out and separate themselves from it, but they also have that ability to have that collective knowing of what's going on with any other Sasquatch or anything. They have that ability to connect telepathically with the collective consciousness on this planet and know what's going on. But they also have the ability to shut it off and become individuals. They're amazing. They're so amazing. There's not really a typical Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
Each clan has their own rules. Like you go like in Arkansas, the clan that you met has their own rules and has their own way of living in Arkansas. And it could be different from the way the Sasquatch are up here. They have that ability to decide upon their free will of, how do we want to live? Do we want to live more physical? Do we want to be in the physical more and be susceptible to the weather and eat and do the physical things? Is that what we want? They have that ability to do that. And then other clans, like especially up here in the Pacific Northwest, they're more higher vibrational. They choose to be less physical more often.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, there's more sightings up here, but I feel, and what I've been told is there's more Sasquatch in the Pacific Northwest than in other areas due to the energy and the ley lines and certain aspects. And it also has to do with the consciousness of humanity and stuff. There's a lot of things in play when the Sasquatch decide to reside in certain parts of the U.S. I find that in the South, the Sasquatch tend to be more physical and like to be more physical down there for some reason. I don't know if it's just the weather or what, but you get a lot more physical encounters down in the South. But the populations up in Pacific Northwest are greater, so you get more sightings, but they're less physical up here. Yeah, you do have physical Sasquatch up here, and they do become physical, but they tend to reside in a higher vibrational frequency up here.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, they just like doing that. I've seen a physical Sasquatch maybe like 6 or 7 times in my 12-year journey. Most of the time I see them, they're in a state of cloak. I call it cloak, but it's like a dematerializing. It's where they are at a higher vibration, and they literally, when they come into, they can phase out, and they literally become less physical, and they can look like a shadow, or they can look like a crystalline body. They have different ways that they cloak. They can actually morph and look like a stump, or morph into trees. They have that ability to just literally morph themselves into their surroundings and just meld with their surroundings. And you couldn't really tell that they were there. I think probably the one thing that amazes me most about the Sasquatch has always been their ability to cloak and to go from total physicality, like you and I, to phasing out and cloaking in many different ways. I have seen so many different cloaks. I have names for them: camo cloak, ice cloak, shadow cloak, mist cloak. They can become like misty looking. It's amazing.
Wow.
But they also have the ability to walk into other dimensions. They are masters of energy.
Mm-hmm.
They are masters of energy. They have the ability to harness the energy around them, the crystalline grid, the Earth's energy. They are one with the energy around them, and they have the ability to manipulate that energy for their benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super fascinating. So whenever I was in Arkansas and I met that family, that's what they said. They were helping me to tap into the crystalline, the crystals under the earth. And they also said that I brought keys there. I've been feeling drawn to Arkansas for a while. They said that I brought keys to help activate the land. And they were also doing energy work on me and just helping me work with the crystals all week. It was super amazing. And shortly after you told me about Kima, my guide, my Sasquatch guide, I was out on like a photo shoot. I was doing a photo shoot of a family. And the first picture was just this shadow, like standing up close to the camera. And then like the family's like way back there. And I was like, what is this weird shadow? And I was like, oh my God, I think it's Kima. And that's what it looked like. Just like a silhouette with like a brown shadow. It's just pretty trippy.
Yep.
Pretty trippy. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome that they can do that. And also real quick.
So one thing I did want to say.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Oh, one thing I did want to say is when you become connected with Sasquatch, you become very earthy. I mean, you become, if you spend any time around them and you connect with them often, you start to become very earthy and connected to Gaia and grounding. And you just want to be out in nature, and you want to connect with nature, and you want to just meld and just be in nature all the time. You become very earthy. And this is just a natural vibrational relationship that you have with them. The Sasquatch are grid workers, and I'm also a grid worker. And what that means is we go around to different areas on Earth and help the energetic grid of Earth. And that could be, like the crystalline grid. There's a grid on the Earth that's energetic, and the Sasquatch work with that grid, and they help facilitate that energy to move through the grid, and they repair spots that can be damaged. They help, they help the transfer of energy. They use their own energy to help transfer energy throughout the grid. I mean, you'll find Sasquatch in a lot of high energy areas, and they're just doing their work there. Like, vortexes, there's high numbers in vortexes that help transfer the energy, and they're just working with Gaia's energy. And that's what they've taught me to do. They taught me to use crystals and go to certain like water. Water is a very high conductor of energy. So I will take crystals and put crystals in parts of water, in rivers and in streams, and that helps facilitate that energy transfer through the grid. And they're teaching me how to do this. They're teaching me to be a grid worker. And they want other grid workers. They're trying to teach humanity and other humans to be grid workers as well. And there's people that go around and do this, and it helps the Earth's energy. It helps raise the vibration of Earth. And that's what we're trying to do. When you raise the vibration of Earth, you also raise the vibration of everything that's on Earth, like humanity.
Yeah. And
they have no choice but to rise with Gaia as she's rising.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's very beautiful. So what would you say if somebody wants to connect with Sasquatch? Oh, and I wanted to make a comment real quick before that. I have felt pretty grounded since returning from Arkansas. So I can attest to that. And I've seen the Sasquatch even the night after returning home, so that they're still working with me, which is such a blessing. Very beautiful. But yeah, so I get what you're saying. I am feeling more like calm, cool, and collected and grounded since working with them. So thank you, Sasquatch family. So I wanted to ask you kind of like two things. What are some of the things that the Sasquatch have taught you? How do you communicate with them? And what would you suggest if somebody wanted to connect with a Sasquatch, how they do that? So I guess that was 3 questions.
Yeah, so the Sasquatch will connect with anyone that has a true heart and an open heart. You basically have to go out there and give off that intention, and give off that intention that you want to connect with the Sasquatch. And you have to be true in your heart, and you have to really watch your motives and your intentions, because they can read you like a book. When you go out there in the forest or wherever you go, whether it be in nature or your park, or out in the forest or whatever, once you go out there, they already know you're coming, and they can read you like a book. They'll read your mind, they'll read your thoughts, they'll read your intentions, they read your aura, they do a full scan on you, and they know what your intentions are before you even get out there. And when you go out there, open with them and just tell them, hey, I want to get to know you. I want to connect with you. And just send that intention out to them, and be patient. If you're starting from ground zero, it's going to start with physical interactions. It's going to start with, like sounds, tracks, tree breaks, whatever. They're going to start communicating with you. Okay, so yeah, you've went out there and you basically set the intention that you want to connect with them, and they're going to start wherever they can with you. They're going to monitor you and monitor your consciousness and see where you're at. And normally they will start with physical things, like they did with me. They'll start with noises, physical evidence, stuff like that, to say, hey, yeah, we're here. A tree break here, a track here, a grunt or a noise or something to get your attention and start interacting with you. And once you do that, they'll build this physical relationship with you for a little while. And you'll go out and you'll interact with them, and you'll see things, and they'll start, oh, wow, they're really here, And they're trying to guide you to higher and higher levels. So you start out physically, and sometimes you may bond with a Sasquatch in a physical manner. You may do like a glyph. If you don't know what a glyph is, it's the Sasquatch leave little stick symbols in the forest for you. and you'll see them and be like, wow, that's amazing. You can make your own little symbols, and you have this relationship with them. I know several people that have amazing glyph relationships with the Sasquatch, and they still use it to this day, even though they've graduated to, you know, telepathy and stuff like that. They still have that physical bond. So they'll start with physicality, and they'll start with that physical bond with you. And like with me, you know, it started where, you know, I was seeing things, hearing things. I would see tracks, I would see evidence, and it just kind of drew me to want to know more and more and more with him. And I got to this point where I would go out, and I basically hit a plateau with them where they gave me everything but a physical sighting. Well, actually, no, they did give me a physical sighting, but they gave me pretty much everything physical, and it was like, okay, you know, this is it. You need to graduate to the next level. You know, we don't communicate like you. We don't go and start talking to you utterances. You know, we don't. They have the ability to speak English. Some of them do, but they don't prefer that. It's a very crude way for them to communicate to us. They prefer a higher form of communication. So you get to a certain point with the Sasquatch where you've experienced a lot of physical things, and they want to graduate you to a higher level of experience. And ultimately, it's a spiritual experience they're seeking with you. They want you to bond with them soul to soul. And when you bond with them soul to soul, all the physical things kind of fall away. I mean, it's cool, but when you start bonding with the Sasquatch soul to soul, and you feel their energy and you feel their love for you, and they communicate to you through telepathy and in your head, and they send you visions, and they do all these amazing things on such a esoteric level, all the physical stuff just kind of falls away, and it doesn't really mean much anymore. You have that spiritual bond with the Sasquatch, and that's what they want. That's what they want from you, and that's how they can teach you and start, you know, guiding you and start working with you as far as, you know, your spiritual self and your energy. You know, when I started meditating, that's what took me to the new level. As I started meditating, because I knew I had to develop my spiritual self in order to communicate with them on a higher level. And I started meditating, and that opened the door for so many things, including, you know, remembrances of my star family. But once I started meditating, I was able to start learning how to communicate with the Sasquatch telepathically. And it was very crude in the beginning. They would just send me visions of them. I would get visions in my head of their face or their body, or, you know, like you saw was a big hairy arm. You know, they send you visions, and then they start to kind of teach you how to talk to them with different ways of telepathy when you meditate and you just sit still. You know, there's a lot of different facets to telepathy and talking to the Sasquatch. It's just, you know, there's visions, there's thought impressions, there's downloads. They give you downloads of information. They give you ideas. I mean, all this stuff can be put together into a language and given to you. And I've developed that over years. And I get to the point where I can just straight up have a conversation with a Sasquatch and then record it. Mm-hmm. And that's what, you know, a lot of my book is my conversations with the Sasquatch, and specifically Balana, which was the Sasquatch that showed himself to me when I was 7 years old. He's become my Sasquatch guide. And he's given me so much information, so many lessons. But yeah, you just have to develop each relationship, you know, from person to Sasquatch is unique on its own. You just have to go out there with an open heart, be open to anything that's going to happen, and be patient. And they'll start to interact with you and start to develop a relationship with you. And each relationship is totally different. Like mine is going to be totally different than yours. And yours is going to be totally different, and it's all unique to its own. You can't ever look at somebody's relationship like You can't look at me and go, I'm jealous of him because he's gotten so far. You can't do that. You got to understand that your relationship with the Sasquatch is unique on its own, and you have to develop that.
That's beautiful. And by the way, I think I saw an orb just a second ago, a minute ago, fly past the screen. But that's incredible because that's very similar. I'd say the same thing about connecting with the star beings. And at first, it was very physical for me. They were showing me their ships, and then I started to graduate whenever I began meditating.
Right.
And then it began coming in as visions and telepathy. So it sounds just very, very, very similar. So I just loved how you explained all of that. And thought impressions is really important one too, because a lot of people, they may be receiving communication, but they don't even realize it.
Right.
Yeah. So it's something that you got to like work out like a muscle, and meditation will help a lot.
Exactly. And it's each highly evolved being. Sasquatch are highly evolved. Star people are highly evolved. Avians, they're highly evolved. A lot of these beings that are connecting with humanity are highly evolved, more evolved than us. And they're doing their part in order to help us become more evolved, to help us raise our consciousness and to develop spiritually and to remember those abilities we do have these abilities. We just have to remember how to use them. And, the telepathy and all of these abilities that we've forgotten are being reawakened because these beings are helping us. Sasquatch are helping me. The star people are helping you. Look at, since COVID, you have just blossomed into such an amazing messenger for the star people, giving activations and, teaching people about the star people, connecting them with their star family. You've just blossomed into this amazing, person that I knew you could become. And it's cool to see that.
Wow. Thank you. You're gonna make me cry. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been one hell of a journey, I'll tell you that. The past few years, It's been one crazy journey. So I want.
Yeah, I remember when you were just starting out and just figuring out, that you were being connected and contacted by the star people, and you were so open to it. That's what happened, is you were so open to it that you were just willing to allow everything to come to you, and it just came to you, and you were just an open vessel for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember, so I was getting some communications that I'm like, I don't know if I'm imagining this or if it's really happening. Like, for example, they would communicate and show themselves to me in the clouds a lot, and I would catch it on camera. There was 2 instances where I was connecting with them, having a beautiful experience. They were showing me their faces, shapes in the clouds, all of this stuff. The activations that I received at that time were just through the roof. I could feel they were showing me, like, I literally experienced feeling that we are all one. Like, I felt it in a way that's hard to even describe. Just these very heightened experiences. And there was 2 different times where I had that and I was recording. One was while I was in a plane. I was recording the clouds and I was like, holy crap, they're out there. They're like out in the clouds right now. I can see them. And I posted that on my story. And then you replied, I see your star family in there. I was like, oh my God, you can see them too. You see it too.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah. And there was another time where there was a storm and I posted the video. I didn't say anything about my star family being in it, but I posted the video and then you commented on it. Like, I can see, this, and that. So it was just a really great confirmation. You're very intuitive also and very, very connected. So I'd just like to say thank you. You helped me along the way as well.
Yeah, I can feel the star seeds. Like, when I see you or see somebody else, I feel it. And I know, I have this inner knowing that they're from the stars. They're star seeds, and they've come here for a special reason. And I feel that. And I felt that with you. And I knew that you were a star seed, and I could feel that.
For sure.
But with my Arcturian family, that's a whole different story. I mean, you know all about that.
Oh, well, yeah. So you're also Arcturian. I was wondering if you think we'll have time for it, would you? I probably should just have you on again to discuss that. But there was one experience I remember you mentioning on Savita's interview where you went up to the ship. Do you know what I'm talking about? Would you be able to like go?
Of course.
Would you? Yeah, that's a pretty memorable moment. I bet. Or would you?
Yeah, that was a little overwhelming. That was probably. I've had a lot of experiences, that have been at different levels, and that was probably one of the most overwhelming and mind-blowing experiences I've had.
Wow.
And it was so. Basically, I was figuring out at this point. I was figuring out that I had a couple experiences where I was figuring out that I was Arcturian, and it was in meditation. And well, the first experience happened where I had a dream that I was aboard a spacecraft, and I remember waking up like it just happened, and then I remember after it happened, I woke up, and I was like, wow, that was real. There's no way that was a dream. And I literally felt like I was still there. But yeah, that first incident that caused me to look into it further is I went to sleep, and when I went to sleep, I went up on top. I went up into a spacecraft, and I remember walking down a white hallway, a white corridor, and it was lit up, and it was all white all around it. And I was walking down this white corridor, and there was this being walking a little ways in front of me, and just kind of leading me down this corridor. And it stopped and looked back to see if I was coming. And I remember it had a black jumpsuit on, and it was very skin tight. It was a very thin, lanky being, and it had a big, bald head, and it had really dark eyes, and it was fairly tall, and it was kind of blue. It was kind of a grayish blue, and that's all I remember is it looked back to see if I was coming, and then I woke up. And as soon as I woke up, I felt like that happened, and I felt like that is not a dream. I just felt, and I knew that I had been there, and I kind of let that settle for a little while because it was a little it was a little much for me. But I let that settle for a little while. And then I decided what I always do is I go into meditation to get more information about what's going on. And so I went into meditation, and I asked to know more about what that was. And I remember my star family going, "Do you really want to know more?" I was like, "Yes, I want to know more." And they're like, "Okay." And the next thing I remember, in meditation, I was up in the spacecraft. And I must have been up astrally or something, but I was in that spacecraft again. And this time I was by myself. I did not sense anybody around me, but I was by myself, and I was in this room. And it was a large oval room, and it wasn't quite as white as the corridor. It was a little bit more dim, and it had very smooth walls, and it was very rounded, and it was very open and really large. But I looked over, and I saw something hovering in the middle of the room, and it was like a pod of some sorts, and it was literally hovering. There was no feet or anything, and it was a white pod, and it was just hovering in the middle of the room. So I walked over to it. And as I walked over to it, I saw a being laying in this pod. And you could kind of see like it was a white pod just floating. And then there was like glass or some kind of film, clear film, where you could look in and see the being. And I was literally looking at this being, and I was allowed to just observe. And I stood there for I don't know how long, and just started at the head and looked all the way down to the feet. And I remember looking, it had a large bulbous head, very beautiful being. The blue, so like the other Arcturian that I saw in the hallway, he was kind of a grayish blue. This blue was different. It was very rich and very velvety, and it felt regal. You know, it was very, I can't describe the blue. It was almost electric feeling. You know, it's just, there's this life to this color. And I remember looking at the head, the bulbous head, and the eyes weren't totally black like the last one. It was, these eyes were very large, but they did have large pupils in them. I remember seeing the large pupils. And then it had a very dainty, not really a nose. There was no nose protruding, but there was, you know, like slits where a nose would be. And then it had a very dainty mouth. And it was wearing a white gown. So I didn't get to see like its, you know, the rest of its body, but I saw like it had a white gown on that went down to its feet. I was able to see the feet, and I was able to see part of the arm, because it had sleeves on, and I was able to see part of the arm and the hands. The hands had 3 fingers, 3 very long fingers, and there were no bulbous ends or anything like that. It was just thin, and they did get a little bit bigger towards the end, but they weren't really large and bulbous. But there was 3 fingers and a thumb. They were very long and skinny, a lot longer than human hands. And then I saw the feet. The feet had 3 toes.
3?
But I was allowed to witness and just basically look at this. And I remember being done witnessing and like, wow, this is amazing. And then all of a sudden I had something hit me. And a voice said, "This is you." And I literally was like, what? This is me? Said, yes, this is you. And then after that, I got a vision of the Arcturian hand holding my human hand, and we were holding hands together. And I got very emotional, and I said, okay, this is too much. And they were like, okay. And then I remember saying, this is too much, I'm done. And I literally went back into my body in meditation. And I came out of meditation, and I was just so overwhelmed. And I went and laid down, and the Arcturians were still with me, monitoring me. And they were like, I was so overwhelmed. I was like, I can't believe what I just witnessed, you know? And I tried to go to sleep. I was like, I have to go to sleep. I have to go to sleep and sleep this off. And I couldn't go to sleep. I was so overwhelmed that the Arcturians were monitoring me, and they go, think of something that's going to calm you down. And I immediately started thinking of my kids, and I started thinking of my daughter and my son, and, you know, and I started thinking of my kids, and then I was out. I just passed out. I slept. And when I woke up from that nap, I was a lot better. I was a lot more grounded and a lot more in control. But yeah, that was when I found out I was Arcturian. And then I later got more information of, you know, who I was and how long I've been an Arcturian and all this other information. So yeah, it was pretty overwhelming and amazing at the same time.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. I remember whenever my star family told me that the star being Talia, the light blue one, who was the first one I ever saw, she was with me every single day. The night that she told me that she was me, I was like,
Yeah. Yep. It's definitely a little overwhelming and mind blowing for sure. And they know that. They you know, they asked me, "Do you want to know?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to know." So they're like, "Okay, you get to know." And yeah, it was a little overwhelming, but it's very, once you know and once you come to grips with who you are as far as a starseed, and you understand how beautiful that is, and you understand how important it is to be a starseed right now and what your mission is here and what you're doing here. When you start understanding that, it becomes, you become so connected. You have purpose. You have so much love fill you. You have this, you understand that you have this galactic family that's got your back, and you're much bigger than, what's going on here, and it's just an amazing feeling to know that once I'm done here, I'm going back up there. I'm going back on the ship, and I'm going to regroup, and we're going to see how I did and see how humanity's doing.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
But
Was this ship the Athena? Because that word keeps popping in my head.
yes, it
Wow.
is. It is the Athena. And that is the Arcturian ship that is in orbit around Earth, and it is one of the most beautiful ships you'll ever see. And it's actually it's my ship. I am Athena of Arcturus, and I try not to sit here and be like, ooh, but I am Athena of Arcturus, and I've been around for a very long time, and it's amazing. I try not to get into that too much because I don't want to toot my own horn or make myself out to be something greater and better than I humbly walk this path in this world, and my main goal is for the Sasquatch. My main goal is to help humanity raise their consciousness and help humanity connect to the Sasquatch. That's what I'm doing here.
Wow.
And it's an amazing thing. And my book is getting ready to come out. I'm in the final stages of editing it with my editor, and I'm going to try to get that published next month. And that is going to be such an amazing book for people that are wanting to know more about Sasquatch and wanting to know how they can connect with Sasquatch. Because I start in that book, I basically start from, ground zero where I started and tell how I progressed to where I got to today. And I also end the book with how people can connect with the Sasquatch and what the bigger picture is with the Sasquatch and humanity.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I'll definitely keep people posted. Sasquatch, I've just had so many wonderful experiences with them in the short time that I've known them. They've helped me so much. They're very beautiful beings, as are the Arcturians. You have a nice combination of family going on there. But that book sounds incredible. So I'll definitely keep people posted when that comes out, whenever it's available. But also, is there anywhere that maybe people can reach out to you or find you on social media? I know you have Facebook. Are you open to that if people want to follow you or contact you?
Sure, of course. Yeah, I mean, I'm totally open to that. That's what I'm doing, is trying to help people connect with the Sasquatch. So I have two ways to be connected with people. I have Oregon Sasquatch Encounter, which I have a website called OregonSasquatchEncounter.com. So if you just type in www.OregonSasquatchEncounter.com, you can connect with me there. I also have a Facebook page and group, Oregon Sasquatch Encounter. Or you can just reach me on Facebook or Instagram, Mike Bodewitz, and connect with me there.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, I'll leave all of that in the description for anybody who wants to reach out. And Mike's just a super cool dude. So thank you so much for coming on. It was such a pleasure speaking with you. And I can't believe that Athena kept popping in my head.
I mean, that kind of blew my mind that you actually came out with that name, because that is that's the ship. That's the name of the ship, and that's the name of me.
Wow.
I am Athena, and that's amazing. That's so cool.
I think it kind
Getting
of
tons of energy.
yeah, I think it kind of glimpsed for a second, but I could see like you were shocked.
Yeah,
That's
I was like, did she just say my name? Did she just say that? Yeah,
that's
so that's great.
awesome.
And that happened with Savita too. So,
Did it? Oh wow, that's
well,
amazing.
it not exactly that, but we did tap into each other one time when we were on an
Oh,
interview where, yeah, it was one of those moments where like, wow, we connected again,
that's
So,
beautiful. That's so exciting. Well, I feel really great after this conversation. I love your energy. Thank you so much for coming on. And are there any last words that you'd like to share, or
no, I mean, it's been
you
a
covered
pleasure
it?
to be on here. We can do this again if you want, and you can spend some more time as far as talking about the star people and Arcturians, or we want to know more about that from me. We can do that too. Or if you want to do another Sasquatch thing, if people want to jump on and ask questions, or we want to, you have specific questions you want me to answer as far as Sasquatch goes from other people, I can jump on and do that as well. So whatever you feel like you want to do.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, Q&A may be good. Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you guys for watching this video. Please give it a like, leave us a comment if you want to ask Mike any questions, and if you want to contact Mike, you can do so with the link in the description. And I will see you later, Star Brothers and Sisters. Bye.
Bye.
By the way, this is the photo of the smoky Sasquatch that Mike was talking about during our interview.